What's up everybody, Matt Maran here for another weekly update. So there's lots of news to go over, but very quickly first I want to mention that just for this weekend up until December 4th, all the merch on the Matt Maran Motoring Teespring site is 20% off if you use Holiday 20 as the coupon code, and you can copy that. I have it in the description as well. So if you want to get yourself a hoodie or a long sleeve shirt or any of the other stuff that I have in the store, definitely check it out. That would be very much appreciated. But on to the stuff for this week. Well, the first thing is, of course, the thing that everyone from the littlest of kids to the oldest of senior citizens have been talking about in the past week, and that is the Tesla Cybertruck. That is the big news from last week that I'm just now getting to here. And I'll first just go over the basic info here on it and talk about the looks here in case you've been living under a rock and haven't seen it yet. The one thing that this shares with other trucks is its length. So that's really the only conventional thing about this thing. It's about an inch shorter actually than a Ram 1500 crew cab with its short box bed. So the official length for the Tesla here, for those who are familiar, is 231.7 inches. So that's where all the similarities end, though. As you can see, it's very radical looking, and I have to say it's also not super close to production, I don't think. And so, you know, my personal thoughts here, I think, you know, it looks crazy, and I think that Elon is very smart for doing that because that means everyone has been talking about it, even non-car people. You know, it's been a very popular topic, and so I think he's smart in that regard. Now, as far as production stuff goes, like any other concept car, this one has no mirrors on it, no windshield wipers. There's a lot of things, you know, like the tires and the wheels most likely won't make it to production like that. There's a lot of little tweaks they're gonna have to make, so it's not gonna look quite as radical as this, but they could still keep a lot of this. We'll have to see, you know, how it would do with pedestrian crash testing and all that kind of stuff with that front end. But you know, I don't know how much it's going to change, but I think it will change at least a little bit. But, so some stuff here about it. The body's made of stainless steel, just like a DeLorean. And I actually think that the look is kind of like if you had a modern DeLorean that was then turned into a truck. This is kind of what it would look like. And so although my eyes were burning when I first saw this thing, I think now it's not horrible. It still looks really awkward in many different angles, but I can see how this could work, and I'm starting to kind of like it. But, you know, that's just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts, of course, in the comments below. But that body being made of stainless steel means there are no colors to choose from. Of course, you can do your own thing aftermarket, but there won't be any colors, which is, you know, a little odd. But it's also bulletproof, up to 9mm rounds, supposedly, which is a very cool thing. The glass is supposed to be shatterproof as well, but if you watched the reveal or saw the highlights, they threw these like metal balls at it and it just smashed. So not as shatterproof as they were expecting, but I'm sure that's something they'll work on. They're calling the truck bed the Volt here, and it's 6.5 feet long and has a power cover, which I think is actually a really smart inclusion, considering a lot of people use these as family vehicles, you know, they're pickup trucks, and so actually being able to cover off and seal up that bed is very handy without having to have a cap on the back or something like that like you do with normal trucks. So that's cool. It could also be used to camp in. They had a promotional picture of it with a campus arrangement and stuff. The interior is also a little concept-y. It has an F1 style steering wheel, which makes no sense for a truck. And it also has these futuristic seats that don't look like they have much contouring to them. I would expect it to just get normal seats from like a Model X or something like that, or maybe the Model 3 seats. We'll have to see. It could do something unique, but those seats just don't look super comfortable in my opinion. They also can get a middle seat in the front there, which is something you see in other trucks, and so that is a good thing to keep it competitive with those, and is a cool little extra. It also has an air suspension to raise and lower it a bunch, and so anyway, getting down to the numbers here, the base truck, it's actually impressive. You know, despite the looks and however that's going to end up, if the mechanicals stay the way that he's claiming they will, this thing is going to make quite the dent and be very impressive. So the base truck costs $39,900, so basically 40 grand for a single motor rear-wheel drive version. It'll do 0 to 60 in less than 6.5 seconds and over 250 miles of range. It can also tow over 7,500 pounds and has a 3,500 pound payload rating. But keep in mind, those tow ratings are going to be even more of a struggle for an electric truck than they are for a gas truck, because although you obviously are, whenever you're towing anything, you're not as efficient as when you're not towing, and it's a big drain on any vehicle regardless of what it's powered by. With electric especially, even with supercharger networks being as diverse as they are, they're not close enough that you can do long distance towing, I don't think, because if you watched the Fast Lane truck, they tested a Model X that towed, and the Model X seems like it's going to be much more aerodynamic than the truck here. But anyway, they towed that, and it was basically like they were getting 1 mile for every 1% of the battery, meaning they effectively had, roughly 100 miles of towing range, and that's just not going to cut it unless you're doing short distance towing. It's just, so we'll have to see. They might improve that, but as of right now, towing with a Tesla is not a fun experience. So hopefully that changes. Anyway, dual motor all-wheel drive versions, the next step up, that costs $49,900. It'll do 0 to 60 in under 4.5 seconds. It'll tow up to 10,000 pounds and go over 300 miles. So that's, a little more capable. And then there's going to be a new top tri-motor all-wheel drive version. That jumps up 20 grand to 69,900 and does a 2.9 seconds 0 to 60 for a truck. And it does 500 miles of range on a charge, along with claiming an over 14,000 pound tow rating. So if you want to actually do some towing, that massive battery is going to be the way to go if you want to do any kind of reasonable distance. And it's also going to be super fast, but still, it's only 70 grand. Now, if you want the full self-driving thing, that's basically the only option. That adds another 7 grand onto it. But still, considering you see maxed out normal gas trucks just in the 1500 class that are, doing well into the 60s and 70s, this is a very solid pricing for an electric truck. So that's pretty awesome, especially considering I think the Rivian sounds like it's going to be a lot more expensive too. So in typical Tesla fashion though, you are going to have to wait a little while before these show up. The base model is going to be arriving first, and that's coming in late 2021. So we're roughly 2 years out on that one. And then the upper versions aren't coming until 2022. So, it's going to be a little bit of a while before you see your news feeds and your subscription box flooded with Cybertruck people. I'm sure every single YouTuber has ordered one aside from myself because it's just going to be the hottest thing of the early 2020s here. But anyway, bravo to Tesla and Elon for making something that is so bold and getting the attention of so many people. And if that's all it has done so far, it's already very impressive in my book. And of course, before and after the Tesla truck reveal, there was a bunch of other companies that tried to cash in on all the hype going on with electric trucks right now and remind everyone that they were doing them as well. So first off, GM reminded everyone that they're doing an electric truck that's also going to be arriving in the fall of 2021, so around the same time as the Teslas are starting to show up. And CEO Mary Barra said it will be a very capable truck. I'm pretty excited about it. They say they understand truck buyers better than Tesla does and all that kind of stuff, which I would kind of argue. But anyway, so that's coming. Also, the new truck company Lordstown Motors also revealed its endurance electric truck that they claim is going to be on sale by the end of 2020, so a full year sooner here, and it'll be arriving around the same time as the Rivian truck, which is supposed to come again in about a year or so. But anyway, this Lordstown one, they're saying it's going to be sold to corporate fleets primarily. That's their focus, but they're also going to be available to the public. I think they're going to be around 52 grand starting, and Ford is also still working on their electric F-150s as well, but no definite timeline on when that is exactly showing up. But speaking of Ford and the Rivian, actually, the little link here, they have that partnership that they did earlier this year where Ford invested a bunch of money into Rivian after Amazon did. And anyway, the first product of that partnership, according to a report by Reuters and Autoblog, is going to be an electric Lincoln SUV, actually. That's going to be the first thing to get this Rivian set up, and that's supposedly arriving in early 2021. So we'll have to see, what they end up doing with that. But according to the report, it's going to have a starting price of around $72,500, which sounds oddly specific for a vehicle that's almost 2 years away, or a year and a half, I guess. So, we'll have to see what happens with that. But anyway, in other Ford electric news here, the first edition of the Mustang Mach-E has already sold out. And so basically, if you haven't pre-ordered one already, you're not going to be getting one until at least 2021 sometime. So all the ones that were supposed to arrive at the end of next year here aren't going to be, they're going to be all sold out. So That's interesting. And so it shows that despite, I don't remember exactly how many of these limited or these first ones they're doing, but it just shows that there is a lot of people willing to actually buy one of these or at least reserve one. And so regardless of the name and everyone's thoughts on its place in the Mustang lineup, it seems like it's very popular already. We'll have to see if that continues. But at least initially here, it looks promising for Ford. Other stuff that looks pretty awesome. Lamborghini revealed the Lamborghini Lambo V12 Vision GT. So I guess they were jealous of Ferrari and the LaFerrari way back when that came out. And so they decided to do a car called the Lamborghini Lambo. So anyway, it's made for the Gran Turismo sport game. Looks very cool. And they did actually build a real car as well. So it's not just some computer generated thing. This is a real physical car that is supposedly works. It runs the hybrid V12 setup from the Cyan limited production vehicle that we saw earlier this year. And so, yeah, it's very futuristic. But there are some things, like they said, the heads-up display and stuff could end up in a production vehicle. It's kind of funny. They put a Photoshop picture of it on the moon. It's just... I don't get that, but it's whatever. It would be cool if they did a limited run of them, but as I've been complaining about recently, there is no shortage of limited run hypercars. So adding another one to the mix, even though these probably would sell very quickly, probably isn't something that they need to do. Jaguar has revealed that the Restyled F-Type is going to be unveiled next week, December 2nd, and so I'll be talking about it next Friday when it's fully revealed. The reveal is going to be happening, though, in partnership with Hot Wheels, which means there will most likely be some type of stunt involved. And we do know that, obviously, whenever they launched the E-Pace, they did like a whole barrel roll thing that was very exciting. So guessing they're doing some more theatrics here for the F-Type, which is cool. It's fun they're doing this kind of stuff. Anyway, in the teaser video here, they showed part of the new F-Type for a split second. And the teaser video also reveals it should have digital gauges. No big surprises there. From the previous spy shots in the past, we saw that it's basically going to keep the same body as a current F-Type, but will have different front end and probably a slightly different back end. But mostly the front end, the big change is horizontal headlights instead of the vertical ones currently. And should have a bunch of new improvements on the interior and stuff. But we'll have to see, what they end up doing with everything else. But I'm excited to get more details on that next week. Motor Trend has a highly placed source at GM claiming that the Cadillac's Blackwing V8, which was used in the CT5-V, which I still have yet to drive, but I've heard good things about, they supposedly that engine could die in that car and never be used elsewhere. So the reason is supposedly, according to Motor Trend here, is because of cost cutting due to poor sales. Obviously, Cadillac's been struggling big time recently, and so that's not any big news, but supposedly it's just the way things are like breaking down. So it's cheaper to use carryover engines, obviously, and especially since like the CT5 and the CT4 are still based on the Alpha platform, which is from the ATS and CTS. They already have a known quantity as far as what fits in that platform, and that would be the carryover engines. That's already had that engineering work done, so that's a little bit easier and cheaper to do. And so it sounds like as far as carryover stuff goes, they putting the Blackwing motor in there just makes it a whole lot more complicated, I guess. Although I'm not sure why a 4.2 liter twin turbo V8 would take up more space than a massive supercharged 6.2 liter V8 engine. I'm guessing the extra cooling for the turbos or something. I don't know, but the supercharger had tons of coolers and stuff anyway. But so I don't get it, but supposedly they're claiming that's the reason why that motor will not go into the CT5-V Plus or whatever they call the actual V, since now the current CT5-V is more like the V Sport, and they've just kind of watered down the V badge. So not sure what's going on with that, but it sounds like the actual faster CT5-V is just going to use the CTS-V motors, supercharged V8, which is not a bad thing. I love that engine, and having it in the newer packaging of the CT5 is fantastic. So that's going to be an amazing car if that's what ends up happening. But kind of a bummer that this very advanced new engine isn't going to really get a whole lot of limelight. And so they also say that engine, that Blackwing, will not fit in the XT6, and it's too expensive to get it to fit in the next gen Escalade even. So it seems like there's nowhere else for it to go. So seemed like a great motor though. 550 horsepower, 620 pound-feet of torque. There were rumors in the past it could go into the C8 Corvette as well, or be modified to go into that. But it sounds like all the C8 stuff is going to be way bigger displacement and do something different. So I don't even know if that's that sounds like that rumor's kind of died off. So Who knows? But anyway, interesting to hear that rumor nonetheless. Speaking of Cadillac Vs, though, they just revealed the pricing for the CT5-V this week. And so, like I said, it's more like the V Sport model, so that's why it's cheaper than the old CTS Vs were and stuff, because it's only running a 3-liter twin-turbo V6. But along with the pricing, Cadillac did reveal that that motor is a little more powerful now than originally promised, doing 5 more horsepower and 5 more pound-feet of torque as well, for totals of 360 horsepower and 405 pound-feet of torque. It's going to be starting though at $48,690, including destination, and then you can get all-wheel drive on it for an optional $2,600 more, and that puts it still over $5,000 cheaper than a BMW M340i. But if you include all-wheel drive, its price is almost identical to that of the starting price of the Audi S4. So, you know, undercuts the BMW, it's only about equal to the Audi. So that might be an uphill battle for a lot of people still that would rather have an Audi over a Cadillac. But I would argue, obviously, the Audi's definitely older in its generation, although they did give a little bit of an update here this year. But the Cadillac's brand new, fresh, also rear-wheel drive bias versus, you know, the S4 being a more front-wheel drive based system and stuff. So I would argue the platform is better than the Audi probably, but we'll have to see how they drive. You know, can't say anything yet. But I think it is still fairly competitive pricing, and I hope it does well for Cadillac. One edge the Cadillac does have over everything else is Super Cruise, the only hands-free highway cruising system still currently. So if you're doing a lot of highway miles, I love the Super Cruise and the CT6 that I drove. If you're doing a lot of highway stuff, I can see how this could be a major selling point over the BMWs and the Audis and stuff like that. So, but anyway, interesting to, you know, see the pricing on that. Some other interesting rumors here. Lots of crazy rumors this week. Autocar has a new report this week claiming that Porsche's next hypercar they're supposedly been working on is going to be running a 1.6-liter hybrid V6 that they originally developed for Formula One. So this motor, they were going to use it and they were going to re-enter in Formula One and stuff, but then for several reasons they decided not to, and then the engine just kind of got, you know, put on the shelf because they didn't have any use for it. And so I guess the engineers that worked on that are now working on it again and have it running on a test bench for analysis with regard to series production relevance. Meaning, is it a motor that's going to be available in a street car and be usable in a street car? And so Mercedes-AMG, you know, they're currently struggling with this whole thing where they're using a Formula One motor in their Project One, or now called the AMG One. And I think that's been delayed several times because of trying to get such a high-strung motor to work in a road car is just tough. Although you do have fantastically high red lines. I think the AMG one goes to like 14,000 RPMs or something, but then you have to, the engines are only good for like 33,000 miles. It's a whole thing. So very complicated to adapt this stuff to a road car. So we'll have to see, you know, how this plays out and whether Porsche is going to do this. They're also still kind of conflicted because they originally wanted their next hypercar to be fully electric, and the 918 was supposed to be a stepping stone from the gas to the full electric stuff. But they said that solid-state batteries aren't progressing as fast as they were hoping they would, so they might just use this motor instead and have a straight-on competitor to the Mercedes. But it's also kind of a mixed messaging from a marketing standpoint, because you have Volkswagen Group, you know, and Porsche has the Taycan and all these electric things, and this is the future. And then your new futuristic hypercar comes with a gas engine. You know, even if it does have the hybrid component, that still would be kind of a mixed thing. And I can kind of see how that wouldn't be great from a marketing standpoint for Volkswagen. So I don't know how this is going to play out. We'll have to wait and see. But anyway, interesting nonetheless. And some other interesting rumors. This one came out of left field, at least for me. Came from Mopar Insiders. They claim there's going to be a new 2-row 5-seat SUV coming for Dodge that's going to be using the Giorgio platform from the Alfa Romeo Stelvio, but be about the same size as the Stelvio, and it's going to replace the Dodge Journey in the lineup. So people are calling this the new Dodge Journey. It's going to be like a super fast version of the Journey, which is such an odd thing since the Journey is an ancient, you know, just normal little family crossover thing. So it probably wouldn't keep the Journey name, whatever this new vehicle is. But it's rumored to be coming in 2022 as a 2023 model year vehicle. And the base engine most likely is going to be the same as the Stelvio, so that's not super interesting. But the interesting thing is that there's supposedly going to be, according to Mopar Insiders, a Scat Pack trim, and that it's developed with V8s in mind, and it would have a Hemi V8 in that Scat Pack trim. So that's interesting. Now, supposedly, you know, I don't know if they can do much more than just a naturally aspirated Hemi V8, though, because I think they consider the Giorgio platform for the new next-gen gen charger and stuff, but I'm not sure if they were able to make it work with the Hellcat motors and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not sure how much the Giorgio platform can support from an engine standpoint. But it sounds like they're developing this trying to have a goal of putting a V8 in it. So that's an interesting thing. Maybe it could be a sibling to the Grand Cherokee or something. The new next-gen version is coming. I'm not sure. But anyway, we'll have to see. But if it is on the Giorgio platform, it should handle great, be a rear-wheel drive biased system and have all-wheel drive available as well, most likely. According to Mopar Insiders, it's also rumored to be getting some styling from the Charger. I don't know how much styling, but at least this is going to be something that's going to probably have a V8 in it. So if it looks like a Charger SUV with a V, at least it'll have a V8 and not be fully electric like the Mach-E. But anyway, if you want to see the illustration of what Mopar Insiders thinks it's going to look like, I will link their article and you can kind of see their illustration there. It looks pretty cool in my opinion. And for some more ordinary stories here, a little more realistic. First off, Cars Direct got an early order guide here for the 2020 Kia Stinger that reveals that the base 4-cylinder Stinger is only going to have one trim for 2020, and it's going to be called a GT line version. And so the UK has already had a GT line version of the base Stinger, so that's a pretty good idea of what to expect for our version, and that basically just gives you the looks of the GT, including the grille, bumpers, 18-inch wheels, black chrome trim, all that kind of stuff. And so they'll just have that one trim and that's it. So they're getting rid of the premium trim, meaning you'll have to be okay with the base interior and the halogen headlamps and stuff. And the headlamps, it's not a huge deal. You could probably upgrade those in the aftermarket or, put in some, HIDs yourself. The base interior is actually fine. I reviewed a base Stinger with the 4-cylinder and it's still a fantastic vehicle. And for the money, I think it's a very solid value as well. But anyway, it means most likely you won't be able to get the driver assistance tech unless you go up to the Stinger GT, which is kind of unfortunate for those who want that stuff. But then there's actually a window sticker that turned up on the stingerforum.org of a GT line that's they're starting to show up at dealers, I think, pretty soon. And it looks like, you're still going to be able to option in a sun and sound package to get the upgraded stereo and sunroof and all that kind of stuff. So it's not going to be a totally bare bones vehicle or anything. You can still put a couple of options on them there. So that's good. But with the better looks from the GT, and I think it's only going to be about $100 more than the current base Stinger. So a really good value. You get better looks and get all that for that. But it sounds like the only changes for the Stinger for 2020 are to that base model. It sounds like the Stinger GT is going to stay the same. It is continuing on, so that's good. I've been hearing rumors recently that Kia might not continue on with the Stinger. I don't know how far on they'll continue with it, but at least for the 2020 model year, it's definitely safe. And so, yeah, Stinger GT is going to stay the same. I am hoping they do a refresh for like an early 2021 model year vehicle to give it, like the widescreen display you see in other Kias and the digital gauges, because without those things, it's kind of falling behind. I mean, even like the cheapest, like the Kia Soul now has a bigger touchscreen than the Stinger. And, from a positioning standpoint, that's not great. So I hope that they do, the Stinger's starting to get a little dated on its interior. So I hope they update that stuff fairly soon here so the Stinger doesn't fall behind. And those are very easy changes to make, I think. Swapping the gauge cluster and putting a bigger screen up there on the top of the dash. So hopefully they can work that out. But interesting to hear about the GT line nonetheless. Lexus also revealed the UX 300e at a Chinese auto show this past week. And so it's only going to be available in China, Japan, and Europe, and it's not coming to the United States. And a Lexus spokesperson actually confirmed this to Autoblog and said that Lexus is committed to developing a dedicated battery electric vehicle that is purpose-built to offer the benefits and features that U.S. luxury buyers demand. So they're doing something different for us. So that's, fine, but there's no word on when this is going to be arriving for everyone else. But it runs a 54.3 kilowatt hour battery and a single electric motor for 201 horsepower and 221 pound-feet of torque and front-wheel drive. It can only charge at a rate of 50 kilowatts, though, which is half the speed of all the electric Kias and Hyundais, and that's way behind the Teslas and the European luxury stuff. So a little bit behind as far as that goes, but still would be a nice option. This is the same platform they use for the new Corolla and a few other little vehicles. So an electric Corolla or something would be kind of cool, and this shows that they can do that on that platform. So we'll have to wait and see what turns up here from Toyota and from Lexus, but they're all working on stuff. Another thing here, Mercedes has teased the new GLA that they'll be revealing on December 11th, and they're going to be revealing it online. They did provide 2 bits of interesting info already about it. The first is that the GLA is going to be 4 inches taller than the old one, which is good because that means it should actually look like an SUV and not like a lifted A-class hatchback, which is what the current one basically was. So that should make it a little more of an actual SUV. And then the other info is that they say it's roughly a 1/2 inch shorter, so tiny bit shorter than the current GLA. So it's actually getting it's not getting longer like most other vehicles these days are. So I'm not sure how that's going to play out as far as space goes for the interior, but at least you'll have more headroom with that 4 inches of extra height. So that's interesting. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see in about 2 weeks here how that ends up looking. The last news this week, though, is also from Mercedes, and that is that they've officially killed off the AMG SL63. So that is not getting a 2020 model year, and so it's officially discontinued. And CarBuzz was the first to discover this, and that means that there is now no AMG model for the SL lineup. And this is the first time that's ever happened in 23 years. I think the regular SL is going to probably get killed off soon anyway because, it's pretty dated and there's, I don't think there's a whole lot of sales for it, and they're working on the next gen version. So we'll have to see. I guess, I don't think they've interrupted production in, 50 years or whatever. So maybe they'll just continue it just for the, bragging rights of saying this has been in production for X amount of years. But the rumors are still pretty sketchy on what's coming with the new SL, and it sounds like it might be a ways off. There's some rumors saying it's going to come as soon as 2021, but there aren't any, prototypes or anything like that that's been spied recently, or at all, period. So I don't know how far along they are in development for this vehicle, and it seems like they're kind of all over the place as far as what they want to do with it. I mean, the most recent rumors are suggesting it's going to end up being some sportier vehicle, which doesn't make any sense because they already have the AMG GT Roadster for people who want a sporty 2-seater luxury Mercedes. And it's not like the AMG GT rides like a race car or anything. Like, it's still comfortable. I reviewed one. They're fantastic cars. And so, I don't think there's any place for the SL there. So I'm not sure how they would do a sportier SL without stepping on the toes of the AMG GT. My vote, and I haven't heard any rumors about this, but my vote would be make it a boat. Make it a big cruiser. I mean, with luxury, being more and more appealing to people, and, there isn't really a big boat anymore. They are getting rid of the S-Class Cabriolet, I believe, if they haven't already. And so, you don't have a big, comfortable convertible cruiser. So make it a big, comfortable convertible, and then just do a Maybach version, all that kind of stuff, and kind of... I think that would make the most sense because there's plenty of sporty vehicles in the Mercedes lineup. They don't need any more sports cars. I think what they need is a big, comfortable cruiser. So we'll have to see, but that's just my 2 cents there. But anyway, kind of a bummer to see the SL63 going away. But yeah, so that's it for all the news this week, guys. So let me know your thoughts and everything in the comments below. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.